Question 1. Compliance review shows that a prospective student, who is a distant relative of a faculty member, has approached a staff member involved in the Taha University entrance exam preparation with a request for some hints about the specific topics that will be covered in the upcoming exam, stating they are under immense pressure to perform well. What is the most appropriate course of action for the staff member? Option A. Provide the student with a general overview of the subjects that will be tested, assuring them that this is standard practice for all applicants. Option B. Politely decline the request, explaining that providing any information about the exam content would compromise its integrity and violate university regulations, and then report the incident to the relevant examination oversight committee. Option C. Advise the student to focus on general study materials and recommend they seek tutoring from external sources to improve their preparation. Option D. Inform the student that, due to their family connection, a special review of their exam paper will be conducted to ensure fairness. The correct answer is B. Politely decline the request, explaining that providing any information about the exam content would compromise its integrity and violate university regulations, and then report the incident to the relevant examination oversight committee. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire to succeed and the university's commitment to academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in entrance exams can lead some students to seek unfair advantages, testing the ethical compass of those involved in the examination process. Careful judgment is required to uphold the principles of fairness, honesty, and the integrity of the Taha University's admissions process. The correct approach involves prioritizing the integrity of the examination process and adhering strictly to the Taha University's established regulations for entrance exams. This means ensuring all candidates are assessed on their own merit, without any form of external assistance or pre-existing knowledge of specific questions or answers. This aligns with the ethical duty to maintain a fair and equitable assessment environment, as mandated by the university's academic policies and the principles of academic honesty. An incorrect approach would be to provide the student with advance information about the exam questions. This action directly violates the Taha University's regulations on exam security and academic integrity, as it grants an unfair advantage to one candidate over others. Ethically, it undermines the principle of equal opportunity and devalues the hard work of other applicants. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the student's request and take no action. While this might seem like a neutral stance, it fails to uphold the university's responsibility to ensure a fair examination process. It implicitly allows for the possibility of unfair practices to go unchecked, which can erode trust in the institution. A third incorrect approach would be to dismiss the student's request without considering the underlying pressure they might be experiencing. While the request itself is inappropriate, a more constructive response, within the bounds of university policy, might involve guiding the student towards legitimate preparation resources. However, any action that compromises exam integrity is unacceptable. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the Taha University's examination regulations and ethical guidelines. When faced with such a request, a professional must first identify the potential breach of regulation and ethical principles. The immediate priority is to refuse any action that would compromise the integrity of the exam. Subsequently, the professional should consider reporting the incident through the appropriate university channels to ensure proper investigation and adherence to policy. The focus should always be on maintaining fairness and upholding the standards of the institution. Question 2. To address the challenge of a student approaching an invigilator for unauthorized assistance with the Taha University entrance exam, what is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible course of action for the invigilator? Option A. Firmly refuse the student's request and report the incident to the appropriate university authorities. Option B. Offer the student vague study tips that might hint at exam content. Option C. Provide the student with the exam questions or answers to help them succeed. Option D. Ignore the student's request and take no further action. The correct answer is A. Firmly refuse the student's request and report the incident to the appropriate university authorities. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The pressure to perform well on a crucial entrance exam can lead individuals to consider unethical shortcuts. Careful judgment is required to uphold ethical standards while also acknowledging the pressures students face. The correct approach involves prioritizing academic integrity and the principles of fair examination. This means refusing to engage in any form of academic dishonesty, such as providing or receiving unauthorized assistance. This aligns with the Taha University's stated commitment to ethical conduct and the fundamental principles of fair assessment, which are implicitly understood to be part of any reputable educational institution's framework. Upholding these principles ensures that all candidates are evaluated on their own merit, maintaining the credibility of the entrance examination and the university itself. An incorrect approach would be to provide the student with the exam questions or answers. This directly violates the principle of academic integrity, undermining the fairness of the examination process. It constitutes a breach of trust and professional ethics, as it facilitates cheating and devalues the efforts of honest candidates. Such an action would also expose the invigilator to severe disciplinary action, including potential dismissal and damage to their professional reputation. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the student's request, but also fail to report the incident. Passive inaction, while not actively participating in cheating, still fails to uphold the university's standards. It creates an environment where such unethical behavior might be perceived as acceptable or at least overlooked, eroding the overall integrity of the examination process. A responsible professional has a duty to report any suspected breaches of academic integrity. A further incorrect approach would be to offer the student general study advice that is subtly designed to hint at specific areas that might be covered, without explicitly providing answers. While seemingly less direct, this still borders on providing unauthorized assistance and can be interpreted as an attempt to gain an unfair advantage for the student. It compromises the impartiality expected of an invigilator and can lead to accusations of bias. The professional decision-making process in such situation should involve a clear understanding of the university's code of conduct and examination regulations. When faced with a request that compromises academic integrity, the immediate and primary response should be to firmly and politely decline. Subsequently, it is crucial to report the incident to the appropriate university authorities, such as the examination board or academic integrity office, following established procedures. This ensures that the university can investigate and take appropriate action, thereby safeguarding the fairness and credibility of its admissions process. Question 3. The review process indicates that during the Taha University entrance exam, a candidate was observed discreetly using a mobile phone to access information, which is a clear violation of the examination rules. What is the most appropriate ethical and regulatory course of action? Option A. Discreetly offer the student assistance in using their phone for answers, framing it as a way to help them succeed. Option B. Immediately report the observed cheating to the examination invigilator or designated authority responsible for the Taha University entrance exam. Option C. Ignore the incident to avoid potential conflict or repercussions. Option D. Send a general, anonymous complaint to the university's main student services department, without specific details about the exam or the misconduct. Correct answer is B. Immediately report the observed cheating to the examination invigilator or designated authority responsible for the Taha University entrance exam. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The pressure to perform well on entrance exams can lead some students to consider unethical shortcuts. The Taha University entrance exam regulations, as outlined in its academic integrity policy, strictly prohibit any form of cheating or academic dishonesty. These regulations are designed to ensure a level playing field for all applicants and to uphold the value of the degrees awarded by the university. The correct approach involves upholding the principles of academic integrity and reporting the observed misconduct. This aligns with the Taha University entrance exam's explicit rules against cheating and the broader ethical obligation of all individuals associated with the university to maintain its academic standards. By reporting the incident, the individual acts as a responsible member of the academic community, ensuring that the examination process remains fair and that the university's reputation for academic rigor is preserved. This proactive stance is crucial for preventing future instances of dishonesty and for reinforcing the importance of ethical conduct. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the observed cheating. This failure to act violates the Taha University entrance exam's academic integrity policy, which implicitly requires all individuals to report observed misconduct. Ethically, ignoring cheating undermines the efforts of honest students and devalues the achievements of those who succeed through legitimate means. Another incorrect approach would be to confront the student directly and offer assistance in cheating. This is a severe ethical and regulatory violation. It not only condones and facilitates academic dishonesty, but also places the individual in a position of complicity, directly contravening the Taha University entrance exam's prohibition against aiding and abetting cheating. Such an action would severely damage the credibility of the examination process and the university. A third incorrect approach would be to report the incident anonymously to a general university feedback channel without specifying the nature of the misconduct or the exam. While seemingly less direct, this approach is insufficient because it fails to provide the necessary details for a proper investigation under the Taha University entrance exam's specific procedures for academic misconduct. Anonymous reporting without clear details may not trigger the required formal investigation, thus failing to uphold the integrity of the exam process. A professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the Taha University entrance exam's academic integrity policies. When observing potential misconduct, the professional should immediately consider the most direct and effective way to report it according to the established procedures. This typically involves reporting to the designated examination authority or invigilator, providing all relevant details and allowing the official process to take its course. Prioritizing adherence to regulations and ethical principles ensures that the integrity of the academic institution is maintained. Question 4. What factors determine the ethical acceptability of accepting a significant donation from a private entity with a history of controversial business practices for Taha University? Option A. The immediate financial benefit the donation would provide to the university's critical infrastructure projects. Option B. The thoroughness of the university's due diligence process regarding the donor's background and the source of their wealth, in alignment with established university policies on donor acceptance and ethical guidelines. Option C. The speed at which the donation can be processed and allocated to immediate operational needs. Option D. The potential for the donation to enhance the university's public image through naming rights for new facilities. The correct answer is B. The thoroughness of the university's due diligence process regarding the donor's background and the source of their wealth, in alignment with established university policies on donor acceptance and ethical guidelines. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's immediate financial needs with the long-term ethical implications of accepting funding from a source with questionable practices. The decision-maker must navigate potential conflicts of interest, reputational damage, and the university's commitment to academic integrity. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the pursuit of financial resources does not compromise the institution's core values and educational mission. The correct approach involves a thorough due diligence process that assesses the potential donor's background, the source of their wealth, and any associated risks. This includes consulting university policies on donor acceptance, seeking legal counsel, and engaging relevant stakeholders, such as the Ethics Committee or Board of Trustees. The justification for this approach lies in upholding the university's ethical standards and maintaining public trust. Accepting funding without proper scrutiny could lead to accusations of complicity in unethical practices, damaging the university's reputation and potentially jeopardizing future funding and student recruitment. Adhering to established university policies and ethical guidelines ensures transparency and accountability. An incorrect approach would be to immediately accept the donation based solely on the financial benefit. This fails to consider the ethical implications and potential reputational harm. It disregards the university's responsibility to ensure that its funding sources align with its values and do not create conflicts of interest. Another incorrect approach would be to reject the donation outright without any investigation. While seemingly cautious, this might overlook a legitimate opportunity if the donor's past issues are minor, resolved, or misrepresented, and it misses the chance to engage in a constructive dialogue about ethical fundraising practices. A third incorrect approach would be to accept the donation but keep the source of funding secret. This lack of transparency is ethically unsound and can lead to severe repercussions if discovered, undermining trust among students, faculty, and the wider community. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process when faced with such dilemmas. This involves 1. Identifying the ethical issue and potential conflicts. 2. Gathering all relevant information, including donor background and university policies. 3. Consulting with appropriate internal and external advisors, legal, ethics committee. 4. Evaluating the potential risks and benefits of each course of action. 5. Making a decision that aligns with ethical principles and institutional values. 6. Documenting the decision-making process and the rationale behind the final choice. Question 5. Quality control measures reveal a pattern of unusual similarities in the responses of two candidates who sat for the Taha University entrance exam in separate examination rooms. One candidate, Candidate X, has a history of academic excellence, while the other, Candidate Y, has a less distinguished academic record. The examination proctors have no direct evidence of collusion, but the statistical anomaly is significant. The university's internal regulations for the Taha University entrance exam require a fair and transparent admissions process. What is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Immediately disqualify both candidates from the entrance exam due to the statistical anomaly, citing the need to maintain the integrity of the admissions process. Option B. Advise Candidate Y to withdraw from the examination process to avoid potential disciplinary action without formally investigating the situation. Option C. Initiate a formal investigation into the possibility of academic misconduct, ensuring both candidates are informed and given an opportunity to respond to the findings, with a decision made based on the evidence and the Taha University entrance exams regulations. Option D. Contact Candidate X's parents to discuss the findings and seek their cooperation in resolving the matter, assuming their child might have influenced Candidate Y. The correct answer is C. Initiate a formal investigation into the possibility of academic misconduct, ensuring both candidates are informed and given an opportunity to respond to the findings, with a decision made based on the evidence and the Taha University entrance exams regulations. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the conflict between maintaining academic integrity and potentially impacting a student's future prospects. The university entrance exam, Taha University entrance exam, operates under a strict regulatory framework that prioritizes fairness, transparency, and the accurate assessment of candidates. The ethical dilemma arises from the discovery of a potential breach of these principles, requiring a decision that upholds the exam's integrity without being unduly punitive. The correct approach involves a thorough, impartial investigation that adheres to the established procedures of the Taha University entrance exam. This means gathering all relevant evidence, providing the candidate with an opportunity to respond, and making a decision based on the findings and the exam's regulations. This approach is ethically sound and professionally mandated because it respects due process, ensures fairness to all candidates, and upholds the credibility of the entrance examination. The Taha University entrance exam regulations likely stipulate clear guidelines for handling suspected academic misconduct, emphasizing evidence-based decision-making and the right to a hearing. An incorrect approach would be to immediately disqualify the candidate without a proper investigation. This fails to adhere to the principles of natural justice and due process, which are fundamental to any fair assessment process. It also risks making an erroneous judgment, potentially harming an innocent student. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the findings to avoid potential controversy or negative publicity. This directly violates the university's commitment to academic integrity and the fairness of its admissions process, eroding trust in the examination system. A third incorrect approach might involve attempting to subtly influence the candidate to withdraw, which is deceptive and undermines transparency. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying the ethical and regulatory obligations. This involves consulting the Taha University entrance exam's specific policies on academic integrity and misconduct. The next step is to gather objective evidence and assess its credibility. Crucially, the process must include providing the affected candidate with a clear explanation of the allegations and an opportunity to present their side of the story. Decisions should then be made based on the evidence and in strict accordance with the established regulations, ensuring that the outcome is fair, consistent, and defensible. Question 6. Risk assessment procedures indicate that during the Taha University entrance exam, a student discreetly signals to you, the invigilator, appearing distressed and mouthing the words, "I don't know this question." What is the most appropriate course of action to uphold the integrity of the examination? Option A. Discreetly provide a subtle hint about the topic of the question to help the student recall the information. Option B. Signal back to the student to indicate that you have understood their distress and will address it later. Option C. Politely but firmly inform the student that no assistance can be provided during the exam and continue to monitor the room. Option D. Ignore the student's signal and continue with your duties, assuming they are trying to distract you. The correct answer is C. Politely but firmly inform the student that no assistance can be provided during the exam and continue to monitor the room. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's perceived need for assistance and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The pressure to perform well on a crucial entrance exam, coupled with the potential for personal gain or loss, can create an environment where ethical boundaries are tested. The university's regulatory framework, as outlined for the Taha University entrance exam, prioritizes fairness, honesty, and the accurate evaluation of individual merit. The correct approach involves upholding the principles of academic integrity by refusing to provide unauthorized assistance. This aligns directly with the Taha University entrance exam's guidelines, which implicitly and explicitly prohibit any form of cheating or academic dishonesty. The ethical imperative is to ensure a level playing field for all candidates and to maintain the credibility of the examination process. Providing assistance would violate the trust placed in the invigilator and undermine the purpose of the entrance exam, which is to assess genuine knowledge and aptitude. An incorrect approach would be to offer hints or direct answers. This constitutes academic misconduct and directly contravenes the Taha University entrance exam's regulations against aiding and abetting cheating. Such an action would not only compromise the integrity of the exam, but also potentially lead to unfair advantages for the student, thereby invalidating the assessment for all other candidates. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the student's request and continue with the exam without any intervention. While not actively assisting, this passive approach fails to address a clear breach of exam protocol and could be interpreted as tacit approval or negligence in upholding the exam's integrity. The university expects its invigilators to be proactive in maintaining a fair and secure examination environment. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the Taha University entrance exam's rules and regulations. When faced with a situation that could compromise academic integrity, the professional must first identify the potential ethical breach. Then, they should consult the relevant guidelines to determine the appropriate course of action. In this case, the guidelines clearly prohibit any form of assistance. The professional must then act decisively and ethically, which in this scenario means politely but firmly refusing the request, and if necessary, reporting the incident according to university protocol. The focus should always be on preserving the fairness and validity of the assessment process. Question 7. Process analysis reveals that during the Taha University entrance examination, a candidate approaches a proctor and, in a hushed tone, asks for clarification on a specific question, implying they are struggling and seeking a hint to the correct answer. The proctor is aware of the university's strict regulations regarding academic integrity and the prohibition of any form of unauthorized assistance during examinations. What is the most ethically and regulatorily sound course of action for the proctor? Option A. Discreetly provide the student with a subtle hint or clarification that would guide them towards the correct answer without explicitly stating it. Option B. Ignore the student's request and continue with their duties, hoping the student will move on. Option C. Immediately escort the student out of the examination hall and report them for attempted academic misconduct. Option D. Politely but firmly refuse to provide any information or hints regarding the question. Reiterate the importance of independent work and advise the student to answer to the best of their ability based on their own knowledge. Correct answer is D. Politely but firmly refuse to provide any information or hints regarding the question. Reiterate the importance of independent work, and advise the student to answer to the best of their ability based on their own knowledge. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's perceived need for assistance and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The pressure to perform well on entrance exams can lead students to seek shortcuts, while university staff are bound by ethical codes and regulations to uphold the fairness and validity of the examination process. Careful judgment is required to balance support for students with the imperative to maintain a rigorous and equitable academic environment. The correct approach involves upholding the integrity of the examination process by refusing to provide answers or hints. This aligns with the Taha University's stated commitment to academic honesty and the principles of fair assessment, which are fundamental to the validity of any entrance examination. Providing unauthorized assistance would constitute a breach of trust and a violation of the examination's rules, undermining the purpose of the exam as a measure of a candidate's own knowledge and aptitude. This approach prioritizes ethical conduct and adherence to university regulations. An incorrect approach of providing the student with the answers directly is a severe ethical and regulatory violation. It directly compromises the integrity of the examination, rendering the results meaningless and unfair to other candidates. This action would be a breach of the Taha University's academic integrity policy and could lead to disciplinary action against both the staff member and the student. Another incorrect approach of suggesting the student try their best and hope for the best without addressing the underlying request for help, while seemingly neutral, fails to uphold the ethical responsibility to actively protect the examination's integrity. It implicitly condones the student's attempt to seek an unfair advantage by not firmly redirecting them to appropriate ethical study methods or by not reinforcing the importance of independent work. This passive stance can be interpreted as a failure to actively prevent academic misconduct. A further incorrect approach of reporting the student to the examination authorities without first attempting to understand the situation or offer guidance on appropriate conduct is also problematic. While reporting misconduct is sometimes necessary, an immediate escalation without any attempt at informal resolution or clarification can be seen as overly punitive and may not align with a supportive, yet firm, approach to academic integrity. The primary ethical duty is to ensure the exam is fair, which can sometimes involve educating students on proper conduct before resorting to formal sanctions. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the Taha University's examination regulations and ethical guidelines. When faced with a student seeking inappropriate assistance, the professional should first acknowledge the student's request, then clearly and firmly state the university's policy on academic integrity and the prohibition of providing exam answers. The professional should then redirect the student to appropriate resources for legitimate academic support, such as study guides or tutoring services, emphasizing the importance of independent effort. If the student persists in seeking illicit assistance, then escalating the matter through the appropriate university channels would be the next step, ensuring documentation of the interaction. Question 8. Stakeholder feedback indicates that some prospective students are experiencing significant anxiety about the Taha University entrance exam and are seeking ways to gain an unfair advantage. You are a student mentor tasked with advising these individuals. A student confides in you that they have been offered access to a set of questions that are allegedly from a previous version of the Taha University entrance exam, which they believe will be very similar to the upcoming one. They ask for your advice on whether to use this material. What is the most ethically and regulatorily sound advice you can provide? Option A. Advise the student that using any unauthorized or leaked exam materials is a direct violation of the Taha University entrance exam's academic integrity policy and could lead to severe penalties, including disqualification from the entrance process and future academic opportunities. Emphasize that genuine preparation through legitimate study is the only acceptable path. Option B. Advise the student to ignore the offer of leaked questions, but to focus solely on the official syllabus provided by the university, without mentioning the ethical implications of the offer itself. Option C. Suggest that the student review the leaked questions discreetly to familiarize themselves with the style and difficulty, but not to directly memorize answers, as this might be a gray area. Option D. recommend that the student use the leaked questions as a primary study resource, arguing that in a competitive environment, all available means should be explored to secure a place. The correct answer is A. Advise the student that using any unauthorized or leaked exam materials is a direct violation of the Taha University entrance exam's academic integrity policy and could lead to severe penalties, including disqualification from the entrance process and future academic opportunities. Emphasize that genuine preparation through legitimate study is the only acceptable path. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The pressure to perform well on entrance exams can lead individuals to consider unethical shortcuts. The Taha University entrance exam framework emphasizes honesty, fairness, and the prohibition of any form of academic misconduct. This requires individuals to act with integrity, even when faced with personal pressure or perceived advantages. The correct approach involves upholding the principles of academic integrity by refusing to engage in any form of cheating or providing unauthorized assistance. This aligns directly with the Taha University entrance exam's regulatory framework, which strictly prohibits plagiarism, collusion, and the use of unauthorized materials or aids during examinations. The ethical imperative is to ensure a fair and equitable assessment process for all candidates, reflecting their genuine knowledge and abilities. An incorrect approach that involves sharing exam content with others before the exam violates the principle of fairness and the exam's integrity. This constitutes academic misconduct and undermines the validity of the assessment for all participants. It is a direct breach of the Taha University entrance exam's regulations against collusion and the dissemination of confidential examination materials. Another incorrect approach, such as using unauthorized study guides that contain leaked exam questions, also represents a severe breach of academic integrity. This falls under the category of using unauthorized aids and exploiting unfair advantages, which is explicitly forbidden by the Taha University entrance exam's rules. It compromises the principle of merit-based selection and devalues the efforts of honest candidates. A third incorrect approach, such as attempting to bribe an invigilator for advance information, is not only a violation of academic integrity, but also a serious ethical and potentially legal offense. This involves corruption and undermines the entire examination process, leading to severe consequences for all involved and the reputation of the institution. The professional decision-making process in such situations requires a clear understanding of the Taha University entrance exam's ethical code and regulatory framework. Professionals must prioritize honesty, integrity, and fairness. When faced with a situation that presents an opportunity for unethical gain, the decision-making process should involve 1. Identifying the ethical conflict. 2. Recalling the relevant regulations and ethical principles of the Taha University entrance exam. 3. Evaluating potential actions against these principles. 4. Choosing the action that upholds academic integrity and fairness, even if it means foregoing a perceived advantage. 5. Reporting any observed or suspected misconduct according to university procedures. Question 9. The performance metrics show a significant decline in the pass rates for foundational courses among newly admitted students over the past 2 admission cycles. The university leadership is concerned about the impact on overall rankings and future funding. You are tasked with preparing a report for the admissions committee. Which of the following approaches best reflects ethical and professional conduct in this situation? Option A. Emphasize the challenging nature of the foundational courses and suggest that the current pass rates are an acceptable reflection of academic rigor. Option B. Adjust the reporting period to exclude the most recent admission cycle, thereby presenting a more favorable, albeit incomplete, picture of student performance. Option C. Present the data accurately, including the decline in foundational course pass rates, and recommend a review of the admissions criteria and support mechanisms for incoming students. Option D. Highlight the positive trends in other departments and focus on the overall university growth, downplaying the specific decline in foundational course pass rates. Correct answer is D. Highlight the positive trends in other departments and focus on the overall university growth, downplaying the specific decline in foundational course pass rates. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's stated commitment to academic integrity with the pressure to achieve positive performance metrics. The ethical dilemma arises from the potential for misrepresenting data to meet targets, which undermines the core values of an educational institution and the trust placed in its admissions process. Careful judgment is required to uphold ethical standards while acknowledging the importance of performance indicators. The correct approach involves a transparent and honest reporting of the performance metrics, even if they do not meet the desired targets. This upholds the principle of academic integrity by ensuring that admissions data accurately reflects the reality of student performance. It aligns with the ethical obligation to be truthful and avoid any form of misrepresentation, which is fundamental to maintaining the credibility of Taha University. Furthermore, it fosters a culture of accountability and encourages a proactive approach to addressing any underlying issues that may be contributing to lower performance. An incorrect approach that involves manipulating or selectively presenting data to inflate performance metrics is ethically unacceptable. This constitutes a breach of trust and academic dishonesty. It misleads stakeholders, including prospective students, faculty, and governing bodies, about the true state of the university's admissions process and student outcomes. Such actions can have long-term reputational damage and undermine the value of an Taha University degree. Another incorrect approach, which is to ignore the underperformance and take no action, is also professionally unsound. While it avoids direct deception, it fails to address potential systemic issues that may be impacting student success. This passive stance can lead to a perpetuation of problems and a missed opportunity for improvement, ultimately harming the university's long-term academic standing. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a commitment to transparency, a thorough investigation into the root causes of any underperformance, and the development of constructive strategies for improvement. Professionals should always prioritize ethical conduct and adherence to the principles of academic integrity, even when faced with pressure to achieve specific outcomes. This involves open communication, data-driven analysis, and a willingness to address challenges directly and honestly. Question 10. Risk assessment procedures indicate a student appearing for the Taha University entrance exam is exhibiting signs of extreme distress and is subtly attempting to solicit information about upcoming questions from a proctor. The proctor is aware of the university's strict policy on academic integrity and the importance of a fair assessment process for all candidates. What is the most appropriate course of action for the proctor in this situation? Option A. Ignore the student's subtle attempts and continue with the general supervision of the examination hall, hoping the behavior ceases on its own. Option B. Politely but firmly refuse to provide any information, remind the student of the examination rules regarding academic integrity, and continue to monitor the student's behavior discreetly. Option C. Immediately stop the student from taking the exam and escort them out of the examination hall to report them for attempted cheating. Option D. Provide the student with a few hints to alleviate their distress and help them focus on the exam, assuming their intention is not malicious. The correct answer is B. Politely but firmly refuse to provide any information, remind the student of the examination rules regarding academic integrity, and continue to monitor the student's behavior discreetly. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's perceived need for assistance and the university's commitment to academic integrity. The pressure to perform well on entrance exams can lead students to seek unfair advantages, while university staff have a duty to uphold fair and equitable assessment processes. Careful judgment is required to balance support for students with the imperative to prevent academic misconduct. The correct approach involves prioritizing the integrity of the Taha University entrance exam by refusing to provide unauthorized assistance. This aligns with the fundamental ethical principle of fairness and the regulatory framework governing academic admissions, which mandates that all candidates be assessed on their own merit. Providing answers or hints would constitute academic dishonesty, undermining the validity of the exam and the university's admission standards. This approach upholds the trust placed in the university by all applicants and the wider academic community. An incorrect approach would be to provide the student with the answers or hints. This action directly violates the principles of academic integrity and fairness. It constitutes aiding and abetting academic misconduct, which is a serious ethical breach and likely a violation of Taha University's internal regulations regarding examination conduct. Such an action would compromise the validity of the entrance exam, create an unfair advantage for one student over others, and damage the reputation of the university. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the student's request and proceed with the exam without any acknowledgement. While this avoids direct complicity, it fails to address the potential for misconduct and misses an opportunity to reinforce ethical expectations. A more proactive stance is required to uphold the integrity of the examination process. A third incorrect approach would be to report the student to the examination proctor without first attempting to de-escalate the situation or understand the student's intent. While reporting misconduct is important, an immediate escalation without any attempt at informal resolution or clarification might be seen as overly punitive and could create unnecessary conflict within the examination environment. The professional decision-making process should involve assessing the situation, understanding the ethical and regulatory obligations, and choosing the course of action that best upholds academic integrity while being fair and proportionate. Question 11. Risk assessment procedures indicate that during the Taha University entrance exam, a student appears distressed and whispers to the invigilator, "I'm really struggling with this question. Can you just give me a little hint?" What is the most appropriate course of action for the invigilator? Option A. Politely inform the student that no assistance can be provided with exam questions to ensure fairness for all candidates. Option B. Suggest the student skip the question and come back to it later. Option C. Ignore the student's request and continue supervising the exam. Option D. Offer a subtle hint about the general topic of the question to ease the student's anxiety. The correct answer is A. Politely inform the student that no assistance can be provided with exam questions to ensure fairness for all candidates. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the conflict between a student's perceived need for assistance and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The examiner must navigate the ethical obligation to uphold examination standards while also considering the student's situation. The core of the challenge lies in distinguishing between legitimate support and academic misconduct. The correct approach involves politely but firmly declining to provide any information that could be construed as assisting the student with the exam questions. This upholds the principles of fairness and academic integrity, which are fundamental to the Taha University entrance exams regulatory framework. Specifically, university regulations typically mandate that examiners ensure the impartiality and validity of assessments, preventing any form of cheating or undue advantage. Providing hints or answers would violate these regulations and compromise the integrity of the entrance examination process. An incorrect approach would be to offer any form of direct or indirect assistance with the exam questions. This could include providing hints, clarifying concepts in a way that guides the student to a specific answer, or even offering encouragement that could be interpreted as a signal of correctness. Such actions would constitute a breach of professional conduct and a violation of the Taha University entrance exam's strict rules against aiding and abetting academic dishonesty. This undermines the credibility of the examination and creates an unfair playing field for other candidates. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the student's request entirely without any form of polite refusal or explanation. While not actively assisting in misconduct, this could be perceived as unprofessional or unhelpful, potentially leading to further attempts by the student to solicit assistance or to a negative perception of the examination process. A professional response requires clear communication and adherence to established protocols. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the examination's rules and ethical guidelines. When faced with a student's request for assistance during an exam, the examiner should first assess if the request falls within the scope of permissible actions, e.g., clarifying administrative instructions. If the request pertains to the exam content, the examiner must immediately recognize the potential for academic misconduct. The next step is to politely and clearly state that they are unable to provide assistance with the exam questions, citing the need to maintain fairness and uphold the integrity of the examination. This response should be delivered calmly and professionally, without judgment. If the student persists, the examiner should follow university protocol, which may involve reporting the incident to the examination supervisor. Question 12. Cost-benefit analysis shows that providing advance information about specific question types on the Taha University entrance exam to a relative could significantly improve their chances of admission, potentially leading to a substantial personal reward. However, this action would also risk severe penalties for both parties if discovered. Considering the strict regulatory framework of the Taha University entrance exam, what is the most ethically and regulatorily sound course of action? Option A. Provide the information, rationalizing that the personal reward outweighs the risk and that the relative deserves a chance. Option B. Provide a limited amount of general advice that is not directly related to specific questions, hoping to offer some help without a significant breach. Option C. Refuse to provide any advance information, citing the Taha University entrance exam regulations and the ethical obligation to maintain the integrity of the examination process. Option D. Report the situation to a supervisor and request guidance on how to proceed, while still refraining from providing any unauthorized information. The correct answer is C. Refuse to provide any advance information, citing the Taha University entrance exam regulations and the ethical obligation to maintain the integrity of the examination process. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it forces a decision between immediate financial gain and adherence to ethical principles and university regulations. The core conflict lies in the potential for personal benefit versus the obligation to uphold academic integrity and fairness. The university's entrance exam is a critical gateway, and any action that compromises its fairness undermines the institution's reputation and the trust placed in its admissions process. Careful judgment is required to navigate the temptation of personal advantage against the duty of professional conduct. The correct approach involves prioritizing the integrity of the examination process and adhering strictly to the Taha University entrance exam regulations. This means refusing to provide any unauthorized assistance or information, even if it appears to offer a significant personal or financial benefit. The regulatory framework for university entrance exams, as stipulated by Taha University, mandates impartiality and fairness for all candidates. Ethically, professionals involved in the examination process have a duty of care to ensure a level playing field and to prevent any form of academic misconduct. This approach aligns with the principle of do no harm by protecting the fairness of the assessment and the credibility of the university. An incorrect approach would be to provide the requested information or assistance. This action directly violates the Taha University entrance exam regulations concerning the confidentiality and security of examination materials and procedures. Ethically, this constitutes a breach of trust and a failure to act with integrity, potentially leading to unfair advantages for certain candidates and disadvantaging others. Such an action could also be construed as aiding and abetting academic dishonesty, which carries severe consequences for both the individual providing the information and the candidate receiving it. Another incorrect approach would be to attempt to justify the action by claiming it is a one-time exception or that the candidate is deserving. While cost-benefit analysis might highlight potential personal gains, these justifications do not override the fundamental regulatory and ethical obligations. The regulations are absolute in their requirement for fairness and impartiality, and no personal assessment of a candidate's worth can legitimize a breach of these rules. This approach fails to recognize that the integrity of the system is paramount and cannot be compromised for individual circumstances. A professional decision-making process in such a situation should involve a clear understanding of the Taha University entrance exam regulations and the ethical code of conduct. When faced with a conflict of interest or a request that compromises integrity, the professional should immediately identify the potential ethical and regulatory violations. The next step is to refuse the request clearly and unequivocally, citing the relevant regulations or ethical principles. If the pressure persists or the situation is complex, seeking guidance from a supervisor or the appropriate university authority is crucial. The ultimate goal is to uphold the integrity of the process and to act in a manner that is both legally compliant and ethically sound. Question 13. Benchmark analysis indicates that during the Taha University entrance exam, a candidate observes an invigilator appearing to subtly glance at a student's answer sheet multiple times during a critical section of the exam. The candidate is concerned this might indicate preferential treatment or an attempt to influence the outcome. What is the most ethically appropriate course of action for the observing candidate? Option A. Directly approach the invigilator during the exam to inquire about their behavior. Option B. Discreetly report the observation to the examination supervisor or designated authority immediately after the exam concludes, providing specific details of what was observed. Option C. Attempt to subtly signal to the invigilator that their actions are being noticed, hoping to deter any potential misconduct. Option D. Ignore the observation, assuming it was a misunderstanding or not significant enough to warrant intervention. The correct answer is B. Discreetly report the observation to the examination supervisor or designated authority immediately after the exam concludes, providing specific details of what was observed. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between academic integrity and the pressure to achieve positive outcomes for the university. The university's reputation and funding can be directly impacted by its entrance exam results, creating an environment where subtle pressures to influence outcomes might arise. A candidate's ethical obligation to uphold the integrity of the examination process is paramount, and any deviation can undermine the fairness and credibility of the Taha University entrance exam. The correct approach involves a steadfast commitment to the established examination protocols and a refusal to engage in any activity that could compromise the integrity of the exam. This aligns with the core ethical principles of fairness, honesty, and transparency expected of all individuals involved in the examination process. Specifically, the Taha University entrance exam regulations likely stipulate strict guidelines on maintaining exam security and preventing any form of bias or undue influence. Reporting the observation through the designated channels, without taking any personal action that could be misconstrued, is the most responsible and ethically sound course of action. This ensures that the appropriate authorities can investigate and address the situation according to established procedures, safeguarding the integrity of the entire examination. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the observation. This failure to act would violate the ethical duty to report potential irregularities and could be seen as tacit approval of unethical conduct, thereby compromising the fairness of the exam for all candidates. Another incorrect approach would be to directly confront the invigilator or attempt to intervene personally. This could lead to a confrontation, potentially jeopardizing the exam's security and creating an unprofessional situation. It also bypasses the established reporting mechanisms, which are designed to handle such issues impartially and effectively. Furthermore, attempting to subtly influence the invigilator's behavior, even with good intentions, would be a breach of ethical conduct, as it introduces personal bias and undermines the objective administration of the exam. The professional decision-making process in such situations requires a clear understanding of one's ethical obligations and the university's regulatory framework. Professionals should first identify the potential ethical conflict. Then, they should consult the relevant regulations and guidelines for the Taha University entrance exam to understand the prescribed procedures for handling irregularities. The next step is to consider the potential consequences of each possible action, both for themselves and for the integrity of the examination. Finally, the decision should be made to act in a manner that upholds the highest ethical standards and adheres strictly to the established protocols, prioritizing the fairness and credibility of the examination process. Question 14. System analysis indicates that a prospective student preparing for the Taha University entrance exam is approached by a close friend who is also a candidate. The friend, feeling unprepared and under immense pressure, asks the prospective student to share specific questions from the exam after they have taken it, claiming it would be a small favor and that everyone does it. The prospective student is aware that the Taha University entrance exam regulations strictly prohibit the disclosure or sharing of exam content. What is the most ethically and regulatorily sound approach for the prospective student to take? Option A. Inform the friend that while direct sharing is not possible, they could discreetly pass on some of the questions if they are asked by the invigilator. Option B. Suggest that the friend try to find unofficial study groups online where exam-related information might be shared. Option C. Politely but firmly refuse the friend's request, explaining that sharing exam content is against the Taha University entrance exam regulations and would be unfair to other candidates. Option D. Agree to share some general topics that might be covered without revealing specific questions to help the friend feel more prepared. The correct answer is C. Politely but firmly refuse the friend's request, explaining that sharing exam content is against the Taha University entrance exam regulations and would be unfair to other candidates. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the university's commitment to academic integrity. Pressure to perform well in entrance exams can lead individuals to consider unethical shortcuts. Careful judgment is required to navigate this situation, upholding ethical standards while respecting the university's regulations. The correct approach involves prioritizing academic integrity and adhering strictly to the Taha University entrance exam regulations. This means refusing to engage in any form of academic dishonesty, including sharing exam content. This approach is ethically sound and legally compliant with the Taha University entrance exam framework, which implicitly or explicitly prohibits such actions to ensure a fair and equitable assessment process for all candidates. Upholding these principles is fundamental to the credibility of the university and its admissions process. An incorrect approach would be to agree to share the exam questions with a friend. This action directly violates the principles of academic integrity and the specific regulations governing the Taha University entrance exam. Such a breach undermines the fairness of the examination process, devalues the efforts of honest candidates, and could lead to severe disciplinary actions for both individuals involved, including disqualification from the exam and potential future academic repercussions. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the friend's request without any form of response or guidance. While not actively participating in the misconduct, this passive stance fails to uphold the ethical responsibility to prevent academic dishonesty. It allows the potential for unethical behavior to proceed unchecked, which is contrary to the spirit of academic integrity expected of all members of the university community, even prospective students. A third incorrect approach would be to suggest that the friend find alternative, less direct methods of obtaining exam information, such as seeking out leaked materials from unofficial sources. This is ethically reprehensible as it still facilitates academic dishonesty, albeit indirectly. It demonstrates a lack of commitment to upholding the integrity of the Taha University entrance exam and a willingness to circumvent its rules. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the relevant regulations and ethical codes. When faced with a request that compromises academic integrity, the professional should first identify the ethical conflict. Then, they should consult the specific rules and guidelines of the institution. In this case, Taha University entrance exam regulations. The next step is to choose the course of action that aligns with these regulations and ethical principles, which invariably means refusing to engage in or facilitate any form of academic dishonesty. Finally, if appropriate, offering guidance on ethical conduct or reporting the incident to the relevant authorities might be considered. Question 15. Risk assessment procedures indicate that a fellow applicant, whom you know well, is experiencing significant anxiety about the upcoming Taha University entrance exam and has asked you to share specific questions from the exam paper that you have already seen during a preliminary review session. Option A. Agree to share the questions, rationalizing that helping a friend in need is more important than strict adherence to examination rules in this instance. Option B. Advise your friend to focus on general study topics without directly addressing their request for specific exam questions, hoping they will abandon the unethical request. Option C. Politely decline the request, explaining that sharing exam content would violate Taha University's examination regulations and compromise the fairness of the assessment for all applicants. Option D. Share a few of the less critical questions with your friend to alleviate their anxiety, believing that it will not significantly impact the overall exam results. The correct answer is C. Politely decline the request, explaining that sharing exam content would violate Taha University's examination regulations and compromise the fairness of the assessment for all applicants. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the integrity of the Taha University's entrance examination process. The pressure to perform well can lead individuals to consider unethical shortcuts. Careful judgment is required to navigate this situation, upholding academic honesty and institutional values. The correct approach involves prioritizing academic integrity and adhering to the Taha University stated examination regulations. This means refusing to engage in any form of academic dishonesty, such as sharing or receiving unauthorized information. This aligns with the ethical principles of honesty, fairness, and respect for the examination process, which are fundamental to maintaining the credibility of the university and its degrees. The Taha University entrance exam regulations, as per its charter, strictly prohibit any form of cheating or collusion, emphasizing that all submitted work must be the sole effort of the candidate. An incorrect approach would be to share the exam questions with a friend. This action directly violates the Taha University's examination regulations by compromising the fairness and security of the test. It constitutes academic misconduct, undermining the principle of equal opportunity for all candidates and devaluing the achievements of those who prepare honestly. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the friend's request and proceed with the exam without any further action. While this avoids direct participation in cheating, it fails to uphold the ethical responsibility to report potential breaches of academic integrity. The Taha University's guidelines implicitly encourage a culture of honesty, which includes a duty to report observed or suspected violations to prevent harm to the institution and other students. A third incorrect approach would be to provide general study tips to the friend without addressing the specific request for exam content. This is a superficial attempt to be helpful, but does not address the core ethical issue. It allows the friend to continue pursuing an unethical path by not confronting the request for illicit information and failing to uphold the university's commitment to a fair examination. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves a clear understanding of ethical principles and institutional regulations. First, identify the ethical conflict and the relevant rules. Second, evaluate the potential consequences of each course of action. Third, choose the option that best upholds integrity, fairness, and compliance with regulations. In this case, the primary duty is to the Taha University's examination integrity. If a direct violation is suspected or observed, reporting it through the appropriate channels, as outlined in the university's student conduct policy, is the responsible action. Question 16. The control framework reveals that a candidate for the Taha University entrance exam has approached a faculty member, expressing extreme anxiety about their performance and subtly hinting at a desire for an advantage. The faculty member is aware of the candidate's difficult personal circumstances. What is the most ethically and regulatorily sound course of action for the faculty member? Option A. Lightly but firmly decline any discussion about the exam content or format, and advise the candidate to focus on their preparation and trust the fairness of the examination process. Option B. Discreetly provide the candidate with a few sample questions that are representative of the exam's difficulty level to help alleviate their anxiety. Option C. Offer the candidate general study tips that are publicly available and not specific to the upcoming exam, while reassuring them that the university values all applicants. Option D. Suggest to the candidate that they might benefit from a private tutoring session with a former student who has a reputation for knowing how to pass the exam. Correct answer is A. Politely but firmly decline any discussion about the exam content or format, and advise the candidate to focus on their preparation and trust the fairness of the examination process. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between academic integrity and the pressure to achieve favorable results, which can be amplified in the context of university entrance exams. The ethical dilemma lies in balancing the university's commitment to fair assessment with the potential for a candidate to gain an unfair advantage. Careful judgment is required to uphold the principles of fairness and prevent any compromise of the examination's validity. The correct approach involves a commitment to the established examination procedures and a refusal to deviate from them, even under pressure. This aligns with the Taha University's regulatory framework, which implicitly mandates adherence to its examination guidelines to ensure a level playing field for all candidates. Upholding the integrity of the entrance exam is a primary ethical and regulatory obligation. Any action that circumvents or manipulates the established process, even with the intention of assisting a candidate, would be a violation of these principles. The professional reasoning here is to prioritize the integrity of the assessment process above all else, recognizing that any deviation could undermine the credibility of the university and its admissions. An incorrect approach would be to provide the candidate with advance information about the exam questions. This directly violates the principle of fair assessment and constitutes a breach of academic integrity. Such an action would not only be unethical, but also likely contravene specific university regulations regarding examination security and fairness, which are designed to prevent any form of cheating or undue advantage. Another incorrect approach would be to subtly alter the candidate's answers after the exam has been completed. This is a form of falsification and directly undermines the accuracy and validity of the examination results. It is a clear ethical violation and would likely be a serious offense under university disciplinary codes, potentially leading to severe consequences for both the individual involved and the candidate. A third incorrect approach would be to ignore the situation and allow the candidate to proceed without addressing the potential impropriety. While seemingly passive, this inaction can be interpreted as tacit approval or negligence in upholding the university's standards. It fails to address the ethical breach and allows a potentially unfair situation to persist, thereby compromising the integrity of the entire examination process. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's examination policies and ethical guidelines. When faced with a potential ethical conflict, a professional should first identify the core principles at stake, such as fairness, integrity, and adherence to regulations. They should then consider the potential consequences of various actions, both for themselves and for the institution. Consulting with supervisors or relevant university authorities is a crucial step in navigating complex ethical dilemmas, ensuring that decisions are made in accordance with established protocols and best practices. The ultimate goal is to act in a manner that upholds the highest standards of academic and professional conduct. Question 17. Risk assessment procedures indicate a potential for students to seek unauthorized assistance during the Taha University entrance exam. As an invigilator, you observe a student exhibiting signs of distress and subtly gesturing for help with a specific question. What is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Politely but firmly inform the student that no assistance can be provided and remind them of the university's policy on academic integrity, explaining that any attempt to gain an unfair advantage will result in disqualification. Option B. Discreetly provide the student with a subtle hint or a portion of the answer to alleviate their distress and ensure they complete the exam. Option C. Immediately escort the student out of the examination hall and report them for attempted cheating without further interaction. Option D. Ignore the student's gestures, assuming they will eventually cease or resolve the issue independently to avoid disrupting other candidates. Correct answer is A. Politely but firmly inform the student that no assistance can be provided and remind them of the university's policy on academic integrity, explaining that any attempt to gain an unfair advantage will result in disqualification. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's perceived need for assistance and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The pressure to perform well on a crucial entrance exam can lead students to seek shortcuts, while the university has a duty to uphold the validity of its admissions process. Navigating this requires a delicate balance of empathy, adherence to regulations, and a commitment to ethical conduct. The correct approach involves a direct, yet supportive, refusal of the student's request, coupled with a clear explanation of the university's policy on academic integrity and the consequences of violations. This upholds the principles of fairness and honesty central to the Taha University entrance exam's regulatory framework. By clearly stating the boundaries and the reasons behind them, the invigilator acts in accordance with the exam's guidelines, which prioritize an unbiased and equitable testing environment. This approach ensures that all candidates are assessed on their own merit, preventing any unfair advantage. An incorrect approach of providing the student with subtle hints or answers would be a direct violation of the Taha University entrance exam's regulations on academic misconduct. This action would compromise the integrity of the examination, creating an unfair playing field for other candidates and undermining the university's admission standards. It would also expose the invigilator to disciplinary action. Another incorrect approach of ignoring the student's request and hoping the situation resolves itself is professionally negligent. While it avoids direct complicity, it fails to address a potential breach of regulations and does not uphold the invigilator's responsibility to maintain exam security and fairness. This inaction could be interpreted as tacit approval or a failure to enforce the rules, leading to a compromised exam environment. A further incorrect approach of reporting the student to the authorities without first attempting to de-escalate and clarify the situation might be overly punitive and could escalate a misunderstanding into a more serious infraction. While reporting is a necessary step if misconduct is confirmed, an immediate escalation without an attempt at direct communication and policy reinforcement is not the most constructive initial response. A professional decision-making process in such situations should involve 1. Recognizing the ethical and regulatory implications of the student's request. 2. Prioritizing adherence to the Taha University entrance exam's established rules and guidelines. 3. Communicating clearly and respectfully with the student, explaining the boundaries and consequences. 4. Taking appropriate action based on the student's response and the exam's disciplinary procedures, ensuring fairness and integrity are maintained. Question 18. Operational review demonstrates that during the Taha University entrance exam, a candidate appears visibly distressed and is observed discreetly attempting to communicate with another candidate. The invigilator is aware of the potential disruption and the breach of exam protocol. What is the most appropriate course of action for the invigilator to take? Option A. Offer the distressed candidate a brief break outside the examination hall to compose themselves, without documenting the interaction. Option B. Discreetly note the observed behavior and the attempt at communication, then report the incident to the examination supervisor for further investigation and decision according to university regulations. Option C. Ignore the behavior to avoid causing a scene and potentially exacerbating the candidate's distress. Assuming it is a minor issue, Option D. Immediately stop the candidate and escort them out of the examination hall to prevent further disruption and maintain exam integrity. The correct answer is B. Discreetly note the observed behavior and the attempt at communication, then report the incident to the examination supervisor for further investigation and decision according to university regulations. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between maintaining academic integrity and responding to a student's personal distress. The university entrance exam, as a gatekeeper to higher education, demands impartiality and adherence to established procedures. However, ethical considerations require empathy and a responsible approach to student welfare. The challenge lies in balancing these competing demands without compromising the integrity of the examination process or unfairly disadvantaging the student. The correct approach involves a measured and procedural response that acknowledges the student's situation while upholding the exam's integrity. This approach prioritizes fairness to all candidates and the credibility of the Taha University entrance exam. It involves documenting the incident, reporting it through the appropriate channels, and allowing the examination board to make an informed decision based on established protocols. This aligns with the ethical principles of fairness, impartiality, and due process, which are fundamental to academic institutions. Specifically, it adheres to the Taha University's examination regulations, which likely mandate strict adherence to exam conditions and provide a framework for handling irregularities. An incorrect approach that involves immediately allowing the student to continue without any record or oversight would be professionally unacceptable. This failure would violate the Taha University's examination regulations by not ensuring a standardized and fair testing environment for all candidates. It would also represent a breach of ethical duty to maintain the integrity of the examination process, potentially leading to accusations of favoritism or a compromised assessment. Another incorrect approach, that of immediately disqualifying the student without further investigation or consideration of the circumstances, would also be professionally unacceptable. This would be a failure to exercise due diligence and could be seen as an overly punitive and unsympathetic response, potentially violating principles of natural justice and the spirit of fairness that should underpin university admissions. It would bypass the established procedures for handling exam irregularity, which typically involve investigation and a decision by a designated authority. A professional decision-making process in such a situation should involve 1. Immediate observation and documentation of the event. 2. Assessment of the impact on the examination environment and other candidates. 3. Reporting the incident to the designated examination supervisor or relevant university authority according to Taha University's examination regulations. 4. Allowing the appropriate body to review the situation and make a decision based on established policies and procedures. ensuring fairness and consistency. Question 19. Upon reviewing the examination paper, a student discreetly signals to you, a proctor for the Taha University entrance exam, and mouths a question about a specific concept being tested. The student appears distressed and is clearly struggling with the question. Option A. Discreetly provide a subtle hint or clarification on the concept to help the student answer the question. Option B. Ignore the student's signal and continue monitoring the examination hall without acknowledging their request. Option C. Immediately stop the student and escort them out of the examination hall for attempting to cheat. Option D. Politely but firmly inform the student that no assistance can be provided during the examination and remind them of the rules regarding academic integrity. Correct answer is D. Politely but firmly inform the student that no assistance can be provided during the examination and remind them of the rules regarding academic integrity. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's perceived need for assistance and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The pressure to perform well on a crucial entrance exam can lead students to seek shortcuts, but upholding ethical standards is paramount to maintaining the credibility of Taha University and ensuring a level playing field for all applicants. Careful judgment is required to balance empathy for the student's situation with the non-negotiable principles of academic honesty. The correct approach involves upholding the integrity of the examination process by refusing to provide any unauthorized assistance. This aligns with the core ethical principles of honesty, fairness, and responsibility expected of all individuals associated with Taha University, including its faculty and staff. Specifically, it adheres to the Taha University entrance exam regulations, which strictly prohibit any form of cheating or academic dishonesty. Providing answers or hints would violate these regulations, compromise the validity of the exam results, and undermine the trust placed in the examination system. An incorrect approach of providing hints or answers to the student directly violates the Taha University entrance exam regulations against academic dishonesty. This action would not only be unethical, but also unfair to other candidates who have prepared diligently without seeking such advantages. Another incorrect approach of ignoring the student's request and continuing with the exam without any acknowledgement, while not actively cheating, fails to address the ethical breach presented by the student's request. It misses an opportunity to reinforce ethical conduct and could be interpreted as tacit acceptance of such behavior. A third incorrect approach of reporting the student to the examination proctors without first attempting a direct, ethical refusal might be seen as overly punitive and could escalate the situation unnecessarily, though reporting would be a subsequent step if the student persisted or if the initial refusal was disregarded. The primary ethical failure in these incorrect approaches is the compromise of academic integrity and the failure to act in accordance with the established rules and ethical expectations of Taha University. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the relevant regulations and ethical codes. When faced with a request that could compromise integrity, the professional should first clearly and firmly refuse the request, citing the relevant rules. If the student persists, escalating the issue to the appropriate authority within the examination framework, e.g., the proctor or examination supervisor, is the next logical step. This process prioritizes adherence to rules, fairness, and the preservation of academic standards. Question 20. The efficiency study reveals that a proposed change to the Taha University entrance exam administration process could significantly reduce processing time and costs. However, preliminary analysis suggests this change might inadvertently create a slight, though statistically measurable, disparity in the testing environment for a small percentage of applicants, potentially impacting their performance. The university's admissions policy emphasizes both fairness and academic rigor. What is the most ethically and regulatorily sound approach for the university administration to take? Option A. Disregard the efficiency study entirely, as any potential impact on applicant experience, however small, is unacceptable and could lead to future challenges. Option B. Proceed with the changes but implement a compensatory measure for the affected applicants after the exam, such as offering additional review sessions. Option C. Implement the proposed changes immediately to realize the cost savings and efficiency gains, as the disparity is statistically minor and not intended to be discriminatory. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive review of the efficiency study's findings, consulting with academic and ethics committees to assess the potential impact on fairness and the validity of the exam, and explore alternative solutions if necessary before making any decision. The correct answer is C. Implement the proposed changes immediately to realize the cost savings and efficiency gains, as the disparity is statistically minor and not intended to be discriminatory. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between achieving institutional goals, efficiency, and upholding ethical principles, fairness, academic integrity. The university entrance exam is a critical gateway, and any perceived bias or unfairness can have significant long-term consequences for both the institution's reputation and the applicant's futures. Careful judgment is required to balance the need for efficient processing with the paramount importance of equitable assessment. The correct approach involves a thorough, unbiased review of the efficiency study's findings and their implications for the exam's integrity. This means critically evaluating whether the proposed changes, while potentially increasing efficiency, could inadvertently disadvantage certain groups of applicants or compromise the validity of the assessment. It requires consulting with relevant academic committees, ethics boards, and potentially legal counsel to ensure compliance with Taha University's established regulations and ethical guidelines for admissions. The justification lies in prioritizing fairness and academic integrity above mere operational speed, adhering to the spirit and letter of university policies that mandate equitable treatment and valid assessment methods. An incorrect approach would be to immediately implement the efficiency study's recommendations without further scrutiny. This fails to acknowledge the potential ethical ramifications and regulatory breaches. Specifically, it could violate Taha University's commitment to equal opportunity if the efficiency measures disproportionately affect certain demographic groups, or if they undermine the standardized nature of the entrance exam, thereby compromising its validity as a fair measure of academic potential. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the study entirely without a proper review, which could lead to missed opportunities for legitimate improvements and potentially violate a directive to explore efficiency gains. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and an unwillingness to engage with data that could inform better practices, potentially contravening university policies on continuous improvement and responsible resource management. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process that begins with understanding the problem and its context. This involves gathering all relevant information, including the efficiency study, university policies, and ethical codes. Next, they should identify potential solutions and analyze their implications, considering both the benefits and risks, particularly concerning fairness, integrity, and regulatory compliance. This analysis should involve consultation with stakeholders and experts. Finally, the decision should be made based on a comprehensive evaluation of these factors, prioritizing adherence to ethical principles and regulatory frameworks, even if it means foregoing the most immediately efficient solution.